Please like this video and subscribe to Story Tales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. Roman Maddox gripped the steering wheel of his Ford F-150, knuckles white as he pulled into the unfamiliar driveway. The two-story Craftsman house stood like a statement against Asheville's mountains' new money trying to look old. Property values here started at 7 figures. Dad, Sadie's voice pulled him from his thoughts. Are you okay? Roman looked at his 9-year-old daughter. Her dark hair in neat braids Yasmin from next door had done them this morning after Roman's failed attempts. Sadie's eyes, mirror images of his own deep brown, studied him with concern no child her age should carry. I'm fine, kiddo. Just thinking about Mom's new house. Roman nodded. Something like that. He cut the engine and sat for a moment, taking in the pristine landscaping. 6 months of separation, and Lennon had already created an entirely new life, one that didn't include a trace of their 15 years together. We don't have to stay long, Roman said, more to himself than to Sadie. Mom said it's Sadie's welcome party. She spoke about herself in the third person, something she did when uncertain. But I live with you most of the time anyway. They climbed out of the truck, and Roman felt immediately underdressed in his cleanest jeans and wrinkle-free button-down, spotting European imports and luxury SUVs lining the street. He knew he'd be the odd man out again. Sadie slipped her small hand into his. Ready? The door swung open before they could knock. Lennon stood framed in the doorway, blonde hair falling in perfect waves, wearing a navy dress that probably cost more than Roman's monthly mortgage payment. Her smile stiffened when she saw him. You're late, she said, bending to hug Sadie. Everyone's already here, sweetie. Traffic, Roman replied simply, though they both knew it was a lie. Lennon straightened, brushing invisible lint from her dress. Well, come in. Mom's been asking where you were. Roman doubted Dolores Havens had been asking about him with anything resembling concern, but he stepped inside anyway. The house was immaculate, hardwood floors gleaming, furniture arranged with magazine photo shoot precision. What struck him most was the lack of photographs. In their old home, Lennon had insisted on family photos everywhere. Here, there was nothing. No wedding photo, no family vacations, no Sadie's first day of school. The past had been scrubbed clean. They moved through the entrance hall into a large open living space where at least 20 people stood in clusters, champagne flutes and appetizer plates in hand. Roman. The voice cut through the ambient chatter, sharp as a blade. Dolores Havens approached, martini in hand, wearing an expensive-looking pantsuit and enough jewelry to open a small boutique. Lori, he acknowledged with a nod, using the nickname he knew she despised. Her smile tightened. So nice of you to join us. We were beginning to think you'd forgotten. Wouldn't miss it, Roman said flatly. Nice place, isn't it? Lori's gaze swept around with satisfaction. Lennon has such an eye for design. This neighborhood is much more suitable. The implication hung between them. Their old neighborhood, where Roman still lived, wasn't suitable. The mechanic's shop he'd built from nothing wasn't suitable. He wasn't suitable. Grandma, where's the food? Sadie interrupted. Dad and I are hungry. Lori's expression softened marginally. Of course, darling. In the dining room. As Sadie moved toward the dining room, Lori's smile vanished. You should have changed. This is a proper gathering. I came straight from work, Roman replied evenly. You always do. Lori sipped her martini. Always the hard-working mechanic. Never enough time for the finer things. No wonder Lennon finally came to her senses. Roman felt heat rising in his neck, but kept his expression neutral. Is there something you wanted to say to me, Lori? Not at all, she replied with false sweetness. Enjoy the party. She glided away toward a group of women who immediately bent their heads together. Roman heard laughter, the kind directed at someone. Not with them, he moved through the crowd toward the dining room, nodding at the few faces he recognized. No one approached him. He was a ghost here, visible but not present. In the dining room, Sadie stood by the table, talking to Clara Rusk, Lennon's supposed best friend. Clara was the only one of Lennon's circle who treated Roman with genuine kindness. Roman, Clara smiled. Good to see you. You too, he said, meaning it. How's Jake? Growing like a weed. 5th grade now. She shook her head. Single parenting isn't for the faint of heart, as I'm sure you know. After the separation, Roman had Sadie 5 days a week, while Lennon adjusted to her new circumstances that apparently included dating, socializing, and house hunting rather than parenting. That Clara's eyes darted over his shoulder, and her expression changed. Heads up, Roman turned to see Lennon approaching with a man in an expensive suit, older, around 50, with salt and pepper hair and the confident bearing of someone accustomed to authority. "Roman, I see you found the food," Lennon said with a practiced smile. "Have you met Glenn?" "Glenn Kersey, our mayor." "Glenn, this is Roman, Sadie's father." Not her ex-husband. Sadie's father. The distinction was deliberate. The mayor extended his hand. "Good to meet you, Roman. Lennon's told me about your shop. Custom motorcycles, right?" Roman shook the man's hand, noting the soft palm and manicured nails. "That's right. Fascinating business. I've always admired people who work with their hands." The condescension was expertly masked but unmistakable. "Dad builds the best bikes in North Carolina," Sadie piped up. "He even made one for that famous person." "The one from movies?" "Reynolds," Roman supplied. "Ryan Reynolds." Lennon's eyebrows rose slightly. She hadn't known about that client. "Impressive," Mayor Kersey said, tone suggesting otherwise. "We should all support local businesses. Backbone of the community and all that." An awkward silence followed. Sadie looked between the adults, frowning slightly. "Well," Lennon said, "we should continue greeting our guests. Sadie, darling, there are colleagues who are dying to meet you." Sadie's grip tightened on her plate. "Can Dad come too?" A flash of irritation crossed Lennon's face. "Dad might be more comfortable getting a drink. The bar is fully stocked." "I'm driving," he replied. "Of course you are." Lennon's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Ever responsible." As they turned to leave, Roman heard Mayor Kersey murmur something to Lennon that made her laugh a light, musical sound that Roman once believed was genuine. He stood alone by the food table, plate empty. The room seemed to expand around him, conversations blurring into white noise. He set the plate down and moved toward the living room, searching for Sadie. That's when he heard it. "Why is he even here?" Lori's voice, pitched just loud enough to carry. "He's like an oil stain on silk." Laughter followed Lennon's laugh among them. Roman turned to see his ex-wife standing with her mother and 3 other women, all glancing in his direction with barely concealed amusement. Lennon didn't defend him. Didn't even have the decency to look embarrassed. In that moment, Roman knew with absolute certainty that he was no longer in the middle of a difficult separation. He was in enemy territory. Roman scanned the room for Sadie, finding her near the fireplace with Mayor Kersey, who appeared to be showing her something on his phone. The man's hand rested on her shoulder with a familiarity that made Roman's jaw tighten. He crossed the room in long strides. "Sadie," Roman said, keeping his voice even. "How are you doing, kiddo?" She looked up, relief flooding her features. "Dad." Her small hand reached for his immediately, gripping with surprising strength. "Mr. Maddox," the mayor acknowledged, straightening. "I was just showing Sadie some photos of my summer house on Lake Norman. Lennon and Sadie will be joining me there next month for a long weekend." Roman felt his daughter's hand tighten. This was the first he'd heard of any trip. "That's interesting," Roman said carefully, "considering our custody schedule." The mayor's smile remained fixed, but his eyes hardened. "I'm sure you two can work something out. Lennon mentioned you're quite accommodating." Before Roman could respond, Sadie tugged at his hand. "Dad, I need to use the bathroom." Roman nodded. "Excuse us." He let Sadie lead him away, but instead of turning toward where the bathrooms would logically be, she pulled him toward the front door. "Sadie, the bathroom's probably that way," Roman pointed. She shook her head, pale face tilted up to his. Her eyes, so like his own, were wide with something close to fear. "Dad, we need to leave." "Something's wrong." Roman knelt down to her level. "What's wrong, sweetheart? Did someone say something to you?" Sadie glanced around, then leaned closer. "Not here. Please, Dad. Can we just go?" Roman had never seen his daughter look so troubled. He nodded once, decision made. "Okay, let's get your sweater." He grabbed her light jacket from the coat rack and helped her into it. No one seemed to notice as they slipped out the front door into the cool evening air. Like ghosts, Roman thought. unwanted and unmourned in their absence. They walked to his truck in silence. Roman lifted Sadie into the passenger seat, buckled her in, and rounded the hood to the driver's side. "Want to tell me what happened back there?" Roman asked as they pulled away. Sadie stared straight ahead, small hands folded in her lap. "Not yet." 15 minutes later, they sat on a bench outside Witt's frozen custard, Sadie with a chocolate cone and Roman with a small vanilla cup. "Mom's been acting weird," Sadie finally said, licking a drip from her cone. Roman waited, giving her space to continue. "She and Grandma whisper a lot. They stop talking when I come in the room." She frowned. "They make me take baths with the door open and check my phone all the time." "They're probably just being protective," Roman offered, though he didn't believe it himself. Sadie shook her head. "No, it's different. Today, before the party, I heard them talking in the kitchen." Roman forced himself to remain still. "What did they say?" "Mom said you were unpredictable." That's the word she used. "And Grandma said they needed to be careful. They said they were building a case." "A case," Roman repeated, keeping his voice neutral despite the cold dread settling in his stomach. Sadie nodded solemnly. "Grandma said they needed to show the judge something. They're planning something, Dad. They want people to think you're dangerous." Her bottom lip trembled. "Mom said you'd lose me soon." Roman felt a surge of anger, so intense it tasted like metal in his mouth. He set his ice cream aside. "Sadie," he said, carefully controlling his voice. "You know that's not true, right? I would never hurt you or anyone else." "I know that," she said with a certainty that nearly broke him. "You're the safest person I know." Roman reached out and gently wiped a smudge of chocolate from her cheek. "Thank you for telling me." "Are you mad?" "Not at you," he assured her. "Never at you." They finished their ice cream in thoughtful silence. As they walked back to the truck, Sadie slipped her hand into his again. "What are we going to do?" she asked. Roman helped her into the passenger seat, then looked her in the eye. "First, we're going to watch that show about penguins you've been wanting to see. And then," Roman's expression hardened slightly, but he kept his voice gentle. "And then I'm going to make sure no one takes you away from me." In the safety of his truck, Roman allowed himself a moment of cold fury. Lennon had always been manipulative, but this was different. This was war, and she'd brought it to his doorstep. He started the engine, a plan already forming in his mind. Observe. Record. Dismantle. Later that night, after Sadie had fallen asleep watching documentaries, Roman carried her to her bedroom. The room was a stark contrast to the rest of his modestly furnished house, walls painted soft green at Sadie's request, bookshelves overflowing with science books, a telescope by the window, glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. This was her sanctuary, and Roman would fight to the death to ensure she never lost it. Back in the living room, he sank onto the couch, head in his hands. The quiet of the house usually comforted him, but tonight it felt oppressive. He reached for his phone and called Marshall. Marshall answered on the second ring. "Maddox, thought you'd be at that fancy party." "We left early," Roman replied, keeping his voice low. "Got a minute?" "For you?" "Got a lifetime." "What's up?" "I need some advice." "Off the record." "Best kind." "Shoot." "If someone was trying to build a case against you, legal case, what would you do?" A pause. "This about Lennon?" "Her and Lori. Those two venomous." Marshall caught himself. "Sorry. What makes you think they're building a case?" Sadie overheard them. "They're telling people I'm dangerous, unpredictable. Talking about showing things to a judge." Roman's grip tightened on the phone. Lennon told Sadie I'd lose her soon. Marshall's curse was explosive. "That's low, even for them. Using a kid as a pawn." "What do I do?" Roman asked, the rare admission of uncertainty reserved only for his oldest friend. "Document everything," Marshall replied immediately. "Every text, every email, every interaction. Record phone calls if it's legal. Check your custody agreement for loopholes. And watch your back, they're looking for you to slip up. We have joint custody. Nothing formal beyond that. Then they're going to try to change that. They'll want full custody with you getting supervised visitation, if anything." Roman felt sick. "On what grounds?" "Doesn't matter. They'll make something up. My ex did. Said I was emotionally unstable because I raised my voice sometimes. Said I drank too much because I had 2 beers on a Saturday." The bitterness in Marshall's voice was thick. The system's skewed, man. They'll believe her first. Roman thought of Sadie's worried face. His daughter shouldn't have to carry adult burdens. I'm not playing defense, Roman said finally. Not this time. What are you thinking? I'm thinking I set the board. My rules, my game. Roman stood and began pacing. I need cameras. Security system. Need to document everything. I've got a buddy who installs that stuff, Marshall offered. Discreet. Won't ask questions. Set it up. Tomorrow, if possible. Consider it done. Marshall paused. You realize what this means, right? If they're going this route, they're desperate. Desperate people do stupid things. I'm counting on it, Roman replied. After ending the call, Roman moved to his small home office. The desk was organized with military precision, a habit from his army days. He pulled out a fresh notebook and began to write, documenting everything from the party, Sadie's revelation, and his suspicions, facts, dates, times, observations. No emotions, no suppositions. Just the foundation of what would become his counter-offensive AS, he wrote. A memory surfaced Lennon's face when he'd mentioned the Ryan Reynolds bike commission. She hadn't known about it because she'd stopped asking about his business long before they separated. Stopped caring about his accomplishments. Started seeing him as beneath her. The signs had been there for years. He'd just been too loyal to see them. Roman closed the notebook and checked the time, just past midnight. He should sleep, but his mind was racing. Instead, he made coffee and began researching family law in North Carolina. By morning, when Sadie padded into the kitchen in her dinosaur pajamas, Roman had a plan and a new burner phone hidden in his tool chest in the garage. Morning, sunshine, he greeted her, sliding a plate of scrambled eggs across the counter. Sleep okay? She nodded, eyeing him carefully. Did you sleep at all? Roman smiled. Enough. Are you going to be okay, Dad? The question held more weight than a child should have to carry. Roman knelt to meet her eyes. Listen to me, Sadie. I promise you, we're going to be fine. Better than fine. But I need you to do something for me. What? I need you to be a kid. Go to school. Read your books. Look at bugs under your microscope. Let me handle the grown-up stuff. She studied him with those two perceptive eyes. Are you sure? Absolutely. That's my job. He tapped her on the nose, earning a small smile. And I've never failed at a job yet. The security technician finished mounting the last camera above Roman's back door, then climbed down from the ladder. That's the sixth one, he said, wiping his hands on a rag. 3 exterior, 3 interior, all feeding to this app. He held up his tablet, showing Roman the multi-camera view. Motion-activated, night vision-capable, audio-enabled cloud storage. Roman studied the feeds, noting the clear view of every entrance and the main living areas. Battery backup? Yes, sir. System will run for 48 hours on battery if the power goes out. The tech mic, according to his shirt, scrolled through some settings. And it's all encrypted. Nobody's hacking this feed. After the technician left, Roman stood in his living room, feeling both relieved and disturbed. He'd never imagined needing surveillance in his own home, monitoring his own life like a prisoner. But Lennon and Lori had forced his hand. His phone buzzed with a text from Marshall. All set up? Roman replied. All set. Coming to the shop. On my way. Got news point 20 minutes later. Roman was at his workbench at Maddox Custom Cycles, hands moving with practiced precision as he adjusted the carburetor on a vintage Harley. The door chimed, and Marshall walked in, carrying a manila folder. Got the background check, Marshall said, dropping the folder on the workbench. Roman wiped his hands and opened the folder. Inside was a detailed report on Mayor Glenn Kersey financial records, business connections, political history. How did you get this? Roman asked, scanning the pages. Marshall shrugged. My cousin works for a PI firm in Charlotte. Owe me a favor. Roman raised an eyebrow, but didn't press further. The information was comprehensive property holdings, campaign contributors, voting records. Look at page 4, Marshall said, tapping the folder. Roman flipped to it and froze. There, in black and white, was a list of ethics complaints filed against Kersey over the past decade. Most had been dismissed, but 2 had resulted in settlements. Sexual harassment, Roman read aloud. Both secretaries in his law firm before he became mayor, Marshall confirmed. Settlements came with NDAs. Roman's jaw tightened. And this man is spending time with my daughter. There's more. Page 6. Roman turned to it, finding detailed financial records. What am I looking at? Campaign funds. See those withdrawals? Personal expenses disguised as campaign costs. My cousin says it's enough for an ethics investigation, minimum. Why hasn't anyone caught this? Marshall leaned against the workbench. Small-town politics. People look the other way if the roads get paved and taxes don't go up. Roman closed the folder, mind racing. This is useful, but I need to be careful. Can't look like I'm attacking him politically. It's leverage, Marshall replied. Last resort type stuff. Roman nodded, sliding the folder into his desk drawer. Any word from your lawyer friend? Meeting set for Thursday. Bring your documentation. Roman turned back to the Harley, adjusting a bolt with more force than necessary. I installed cameras at home last night. Started a journal. Got the burner phone. Good start, Marshall said. What's next? Roman set down his wrench and reached for his regular phone. He pulled up the voice recorder app and set it on the workbench. Recording all calls with Lennon from now on, he said, then picked up the burner phone from his pocket. This is for emergencies. If anything happens to my regular phone, you call me here. Marshall nodded, programming the number into his contacts. You're thinking 10 steps ahead. Have to be. Roman's expression was grim. They've been planning this for months. The shop door chimed again, and Yasmin Trent stood in the doorway, her usual confident demeanor subdued. Yasmin, Roman greeted surprised. His neighbor rarely came to the shop. Sorry to barge in, she said, stepping inside. Marshall texted me. Roman shot his friend a questioning look. We need allies, Marshall said simply. Yasmin's seen you with Sadie more than anyone. Yasmin approached the workbench. Marshall told me what's happening. Lennon trying to take Sadie. Roman nodded, not bothering to hide his concern from one of the few people he genuinely trusted. That's bull, Yasmin stated flatly. You're the best father I've seen in that neighborhood. Hell, in this town. Thanks, Roman said quietly. I'm serious, Yasmin continued. My boys look up to you. After what happened with their dad. She trailed off, then squared her shoulders. If you need a character witness, you've got one. I've seen you with Sadie almost every day for 4 years. There's something else, Yasmin added. My brother Levi, he's a lawyer. Family law. Marshall mentioned him. He's good. Really good. Won my custody case when my ex had a team of corporate lawyers. Her expression hardened. If you need legal help, he's your guy. After Yasmin left, Roman turned to Marshall. You've been busy, he observed. Marshall shrugged. Said I'd help, didn't I? Besides, I've been where you are. Lost my kids because I played nice while my ex played dirty. His expression darkened. Not letting that happen to you. Roman clasped his friend's shoulder in silent thanks. The board is set, he said quietly. Now we wait for them to make a move. As if on cue, his phone rang. Lennon's name flashed on the screen. Roman caught Marshall's as he activated the recording app. And here we go. 3 days later, Roman was elbow-deep in an engine rebuild when his shop phone rang. Marshall answered it at the front desk, then appeared in the doorway, expression grim. Child services, he said quietly. They're at your house. Roman wiped his hands methodically, mind racing. Did they say why? Anonymous complaint. They need to speak with you as soon as possible. Roman nodded once, picked up his keys, and headed for the door. Hold down the fort. I'll call when I know something. The drive home took 15 minutes of white-knuckle tension as Roman cycled through possibilities. An anonymous complaint. The timing was too perfect to be coincidence. When he pulled into his driveway, a government-issue sedan was parked at the curb. A middle-aged woman stood on his porch, clipboard in hand. Mr. Maddox, she called as he approached. I'm Angela Reeves, County Child Protective Services. Roman nodded, keeping his expression neutral as he unlocked the front door. Come in. He led her to the living room, grateful he'd cleaned the house that morning. I understand you're here about a complaint, he asked, gesturing for her to sit. Angela Reeves took a seat on the couch, arranging her clipboard on her lap. Yes, we received an anonymous report expressing concern about your daughter's well-being. What kind of concern? Roman asked, remaining standing. Ms. Reeves consulted her notes. The caller alleged aggressive behavior, recklessness, emotional instability. She looked up at him, They claimed you keep weapons in the home accessible to your daughter. Roman's jaw tightened. I have a hunting rifle, locked in a gun safe. Ammunition stored separately. I'm a veteran. I know weapons safety. May I see the storage arrangements? Of course. Roman led her to the hallway closet, opening it to reveal a heavy steel gun safe with a digital lock. The combination is known only to me. Ms. Reeves made a note. And your daughter's living conditions? Her room is down the hall. You're welcome to see it. They moved to Sadie's bedroom. The space was neat, but lived-in bookshelves organized, bed made but with stuffed animals arranged on top, desk containing her schoolwork and science projects. A mess. Reeves took it all in, making more notes. Appropriate, she murmured. Very appropriate. For the next 30 minutes, Roman outlined their life, together school drop-offs and pickups, dinner routines, homework time, weekend activities. He showed her the refrigerator calendar, the emergency contact list, the first aid kit in the bathroom. I should also mention, Roman said carefully, that my ex-wife and I are in the middle of establishing formal custody arrangements. We've had an informal agreement until now. Ms. Reeves's expression changed slightly. I see. And has that process been contentious? Increasingly, Roman replied honestly. In fact, just the other day, my daughter overheard my ex-wife and her mother discussing plans to seek full custody. That's concerning, Ms. Reeves agreed, making another note. Children shouldn't be exposed to those kinds of adult conversations. She stood, tucking her clipboard under her arm. Mr. Maddox, I won't waste more of your time. This complaint appears to be unfounded. Your home is appropriate and safe. Your daughter's needs are being met. She hesitated. If I may speak frankly, this looks like what we sometimes see in high-conflict custody situations. Roman nodded. I had the same thought. We're required to investigate all complaints, but this will be filed as unfounded. No further action needed. She handed him a card. If you receive any more unexpected visits from us, please call me directly. After she left, Roman stood in his living room, a cold fury building inside him. He pulled out his phone and called Marshall. It was a setup, he said without preamble. Anonymous complaint claiming I'm unstable, reckless, keeping unsecured weapons in the house. Marshall cursed. Lennon, who else? The agent left, said it was clearly unfounded. Roman moved to his desk, pulling out his journal to document the visit. But this is just the beginning. What's next? I need to talk to Clara. She knows Lennon's playbook. That evening, Roman met Clara at a small coffee shop on the edge of downtown Asheville. She looked up as he approached, offering a tight smile. Thanks for coming. Roman sat across from her, noting the tension in her shoulders. Bad day. You could say that. She glanced around, then leaned forward. I heard about CPS showing up at your house. Roman's eyebrows rose. How? Lennon's been bragging, Clara said, disgust evident. To her inner circle, called it a warning shot. Figured as much. Roman kept his voice even, though anger simmered beneath the surface. Did she mention what comes next? Clara's gaze dropped to her coffee. That's why I wanted to meet. Roman, they're setting you up, trying to provoke you into doing something they can use against you. What exactly? Anything that makes you look unstable. Angry texts, public confrontations. They're baiting you. She hesitated. Lennon said you're one mistake away from losing her. Roman absorbed this. They're baiting me. Exactly. Trying to push you to lash out. Clara briefly touched his hand. Don't give them what they want. I appreciate the warning. Clara wasn't finished. There's more. She lowered her voice. Lennon is seeing Mayor Kersey. It's serious. He's funding her lifestyle, the new house, the car, everything. I suspected as much, Roman replied, though the confirmation still felt like a punch to the gut. He's got connections everywhere, Clara continued. Judges, police, social services. Lennon's counting on that. Roman studied Clara's worried face. Why are you telling me this? Aren't you and Lennon friends? Something flashed in Clara's eyes, hurt, perhaps, or resentment. We were. Maybe we still are, I don't know anymore. She sighed. But what she's doing is wrong. Using Sadie as a weapon? That's unforgivable. Roman nodded slowly. Thank you. Be careful, Roman. They're playing to win. His expression hardened slightly. So am I. A week passed without incident, no more surprise visits, no provocative texts from Lennon, no calls from Sadie in distress. The calm before the storm, Roman knew. He used the time to strengthen his position, meeting with Yasmin's brother Levi for legal advice, gathering character statements, documenting every interaction with Lennon in meticulous detail. On Friday evening, Roman was alone at the shop, finishing paperwork after Marshall had left. The spring sun had set, casting the workshop in the artificial glow of overhead fluorescence. The ring of the front door chime cut through the silence. Roman glanced at his watch, 8:17 p.m. While past closing time, he moved to the front, hand instinctively resting near the heavy wrench in his back pocket. The shop was in a good area, but old habits died hard. Clara stood just inside the door, hugging herself despite the mild evening. Her normally neat appearance was disheveled hair pulled back carelessly, minimal makeup, wearing jeans and a wrinkled blouse. "Clara," Roman said, surprised. "Everything okay?" She shook her head, a jerky motion that sent alarm bells ringing. "Can we talk?" she asked, voice hoarse. Privately, Roman nodded, locking the front door and flipping the sign to closed. He led her to his office at the back. "Have a seat," he offered. "Water? Coffee?" "No, thanks." She sat, perching on the edge of the chair like she might bolt at any moment. "I shouldn't be here. What's going on?" Clara's hands twisted in her lap. "I had a fight with Lennon. A bad one. About you, Sadie. Everything." She took a deep breath. "She found out I warned you. About CPS." "How?" "I don't know. Maybe she guessed. She confronted me at lunch, accused me of betraying her." Clara's voice broke slightly. 20 years of friendship, and she tossed it aside because I suggested maybe using a child as a pawn wasn't her finest moment. "I'm sorry," Roman said. "Meaning it." Clara shook her head. "Don't be. It's been coming for years. Lennon only keeps people around if they serve a purpose." Her gaze met his. "You know that better than anyone." She reached into her purse and pulled out a flash drive. "Including this." She set it on the desk between them. "What is it?" Roman asked. "A voice memo from Lennon's phone." Clara's expression was grim. "She left her phone at my house last weekend. I saw texts coming in from Lori. They were talking about you, about the plan. I looked, and I copied some things, just in case." Her gaze hardened. "It was wrong, I know that. But after what she's trying to do to you and Sadie, I don't even feel guilty." "What's on it?" "A conversation between Lennon and Lori. They were talking about planting something at Roman's shop. Pills in Sadie's bag to make it look like you have a drug problem." Roman's hand closed around the flash drive, knuckles whitening. "You're sure?" Clara nodded. "Positive." It's their voices, clear as day. They were going to do it next time Lennon drops Sadie off here. Hide prescription pills in her backpack, then discover them later. Roman felt ice in his veins. These weren't just attempts to make him look bad. They were trying to set him up for criminal charges. When was this recorded? 3 days ago. Clara's eyes filled with tears. "Roman, I'm so sorry. I should have said something sooner, but I kept hoping Lennon would back down, that she'd remember who she used to be." Roman reached across the desk, briefly touching her hand. "You're saying something now. That matters. There's more on there. Text screenshots. Photos of notes in Lori's handwriting lists of ways to trigger Roman's temper. They've been planning this for months. Since before the separation." Clara nodded. "I think so." "Thank you, Clara. What are you going to do?" "Protect myself." "And Sadie, will you go to the police?" Roman considered this. "Not yet. I need to talk to a lawyer first. See what the best approach is." As Clara left, Roman sat alone in his office, the flash drive heavy in his pocket. He had suspected Lennon was capable of manipulation, of bending the truth to suit her needs. But this level of calculated malice was beyond what he'd imagined. But he pulled out his phone and called Yasmin's brother. "Levi, it's Roman Maddox. Sorry to call so late, but I need to meet. First thing tomorrow, if possible." He paused, listening. "No, it can't wait. I have evidence. Recordings. They're planning to plant drugs." Roman lay awake that night, memories cycling through his mind like slides in an old projector. Not just recent events, but moments from throughout his marriage, signs he'd missed, warnings he'd ignored. He remembered their early days, Lennon's laughter, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about her dreams. She'd been working as a paralegal then, ambitious but seemingly grounded. Roman had just opened his shop after leaving the army, pouring his savings and heart into building something meaningful. They'd met at a mutual friend barbecue. Lennon had been fascinated by his stories of working on military vehicles in Afghanistan. 6 months later, they were married in a small ceremony that, looking back, had been more modest than Lennon had wanted. Her mother, Lori, had made comments about the venue, the food, the guest list, all nice considering the circumstances. The first year had been good. Then Lennon had gotten pregnant with Sadie, and things began to shift. Subtle at first comments about the size of their house, questions about when Roman would grow the business, suggestions that maybe he should consider a different career altogether. "There's no real future in motorcycle repair," she'd said one night, hand resting on her growing belly. "Especially not with a child to think about." Roman had disagreed. His shop was profitable, steadily growing, developing a reputation for quality work. But Lennon had seen it as beneath them, beneath her. After Sadie was born, the pressure increased. Lennon had quit her job, insisting that they needed to present a certain image now that they were parents. She'd begun spending more time with her mother, more money on clothes and home decor, more energy on cultivating friendships with the right people. Roman had worked longer hours to support their lifestyle, missing dinners, parties, social events. Lennon had called it neglect. He'd called it building a life. By the time Sadie was 7, they were essentially roommates. Lennon had her social circle, Roman had his workshop, and they shared only logistics and brief conversations about their daughter. The breaking point had come when Roman had landed the commission for Ryan Reynolds, a custom bike that would generate significant publicity for the shop. Instead of celebrating, Lennon had asked, "But will it change anything? Really? Or will you still be just a mechanic with a famous client?" The separation followed shortly after. Roman moved Lennon's things out while she was on a weekend trip with Lori. When she returned, he'd handed her the keys to a small apartment he'd rented for her and said, "I think we need some time apart." Looking back, Roman realized that's when the real battle had begun. Lennon hadn't expected him to be the one to leave. In her mind, she was supposed to outgrow him, discard him when a better option came along. His assertiveness had wounded her pride, and Lennon's pride was a dangerous thing to wound. Now, 6 months later, she was living in a house he couldn't afford, driving a car he couldn't buy, dating a man with power and influence, and systematically trying to take the one thing Roman truly cared about, Sadie. Roman rose quietly and moved to his small home office. He switched on the desk lamp and opened his laptop, inserting the flash drive Clara had given him. Several files appeared: audio recordings, images, text documents. He clicked on the first audio file. Lennon's voice filled the quiet room. "We need something stronger. The CPS thing didn't stick." "These things take time," Lori's voice replied. "We're building a case, not a house of cards. Glenn says the longer Roman has custody, the harder it'll be to change. Glenn isn't wrong, but we need to be smart. Strategic." A pause, then Lennon again. "What about the pills? Could we do that next week, when Sadie's visiting?" "Yes, that could work. Her backpack goes between houses. No one would question if something was found in it." "Roman's place or the shop?" "The shop," Lori answered decisively. "More people around. Witnesses. And he keeps tools there, dangerous things. Adds to the narrative." "And then what?" "We just find them. Not immediately. Let them sit there for a day or two. Then you call, asking if Sadie left her inhaler. You go to look, and discovery." Roman stopped the recording, feeling sick. They were so calculating, so cold. And they were using Sadie, putting things in her backpack, making her an unwitting mule in their scheme. That he clicked through the other file, screenshots of text conversations between Lennon and Lori, photos of handwritten lists titled Roman's Triggers and Custody Strategy. It was a treasure trove of evidence and a devastating insight into the mind of the woman he'd once loved. Roman closed the laptop and leaned back in his chair. The depth of betrayal was staggering, but in a strange way, clarifying. There was no ambiguity here, no chance of reconciliation or understanding. Just a clear line between right and wrong, between truth and lies that he would fight with everything he had. Not just for Sadie, but for justice itself. Roman sat in his truck outside the courthouse, hands gripping the steering wheel, mind racing. The papers on the passenger seat, a temporary restraining order, seemed to mock him with their official seals and formal language. Alleged stalking behavior. Pattern of intimidation. Immediate threat to well-being. All lies. Creative, detailed lies. According to the complaint Lennon had filed, Roman had followed her from her home to various locations over the past week, parking outside restaurants while she dined, driving past her house repeatedly, even approaching her in a grocery store parking lot with threatening demeanor and language. None of it had happened. Not a single incident. But the judge had issued a temporary order anyway, pending a full hearing in 3 days that a tap on the window startled him. Levi stood there, briefcase in hand. Roman unlocked the doors, and the attorney slid into the passenger seat. "Sorry about the venue," Roman said. "Figured you want to talk before we went in." Levi nodded. "Good call. I've reviewed everything. It's garbage, but dangerous garbage. They're saying I followed her. Threatened her." Roman's voice was tight with controlled anger. "I wasn't anywhere near her." "I believe you," Levi said firmly. "And more importantly, I can prove it." He opened his briefcase and pulled out a folder. "Your GPS data from your work phone. Marshall sent it over. Shows everywhere your truck went for the past 2 weeks." He flipped through pages of maps and timestamps. "Not once did you go near Lennon's house, the restaurant she mentioned, or the grocery store on the day in question." Relief flooded through Roman. "So we can fight this. Better than that, we can discredit her entirely." Levi's expression was serious but satisfied. "Roman, she made a critical mistake. She got specific dates, times, locations, and we can prove you weren't there." Inside the courthouse, they were directed to Courtroom 3, where emergency restraining orders were heard. Roman recognized Judge Watkins, an older man with a reputation for fairness but little patience for games. Lennon was already seated at one table with her attorney, a sharp-looking woman in an expensive suit. Lennon herself was dressed conservatively, hair pulled back, minimal makeup the picture of concerned mother. She didn't look at Roman as he and Levi took their seats at the opposite table. After the preliminaries, Lennon's attorney presented her case, painting Roman as a jealous ex-husband unable to accept the end of the marriage, growing increasingly erratic and threatening. Roman kept his expression neutral, though internally he marveled at the performance. Every accusation was delivered with just the right amount of concern, every alleged incident described with careful detail. When their turn came, Levi was methodical, devastating. "Your Honor, not only do we deny these allegations, we can prove they're categorically false." He approached the bench with a folder of evidence. Mr. Maddox's work vehicle is equipped with GPS tracking for business purposes. These records show his exact whereabouts on the dates and times in question. He handed copies to the judge and Lennon's attorney. "As you can see, on April 15th, when Ms. Maddox claims my client followed her to Westridge Bistro, he was in fact at a parts supplier 30 miles away, then at his shop for the remainder of the day." Judge Watkins reviewed the documents, his expression unchanged. Similarly, Levi continued. "On April 17th, when Ms. Maddox alleges Mr. Maddox drove past her home repeatedly, GPS data shows he drove directly from his home to his daughter's school, then to his shop, then home again. At no point did he enter Ms. Maddox's neighborhood." Lennon leaned toward her attorney, whispering urgently. The attorney's face remained professional, but a flicker of concern crossed her features. Most significantly, Levi pressed on, regarding the alleged confrontation at Carter's Grocery on April 20th. "We have security footage from Mr. Maddox's shop showing him present and working continuously from opening until closing. He simply could not have been at Carter's Grocery at 2:30 p.m. as claimed." Judge Watkins set the papers down and looked at Lennon's attorney. "Counselor, your response." The attorney cleared her throat. "Your Honor, my client stands by her statement. Perhaps there was a malfunction with the GPS system, or on every date in question." Judge Watkins interrupted, skepticism evident. "And what about the security footage?" We would need to review that footage, Your Honor." The judge nodded. "I'm sure you would. Unfortunately, I don't see sufficient evidence to maintain this temporary order. He turned to Roman. Mr. Maddox, this order is dismissed. You're free to go about your business. Relief washed over Roman, but Levi wasn't finished. Your Honor, we'd like to request sanctions against Ms. Maddox for filing a false report. The evidence clearly shows that these allegations were fabricated. Judge Watkins considered this, then turned to Lennon. Ms. Maddox, these are serious allegations you've made. If they're found to be knowingly false, there can be serious consequences. Lennon's composure slipped for the first time. I wasn't lying. I saw him. I felt threatened. The evidence suggests otherwise. The judge replied evenly. I'm going to take the request for sanctions under advisement. In the meantime, he leaned forward, eyes stern. I strongly caution you against making further allegations without substantial supporting evidence. This court does not look kindly on being misled. He banged his gavel. We're adjourned. As they gathered their papers, Roman caught Lennon's eye across the room. Her expression was a mixture of shock and fury. She hadn't expected him to come prepared. She hadn't expected him to fight back so effectively. Outside the courtroom, Levi clasped Roman's shoulder. That went better than expected. Watkins is nobody's fool. What happens now? Now we go on offense. The restraining order was their Hail Mary trying to keep you from Sadie by painting you as dangerous. Levi's expression was grim but satisfied. It backfired spectacularly. Now we file for full custody. On what grounds? Parental alienation, false reporting, conspiracy to interfere with your relationship with your daughter. Levi ticked off on his fingers. Plus, we have the evidence from Clara about their plans to plant drugs. It's a strong case, Roman. As they walked through the courthouse lobby, Roman spotted Mayor Kersey standing near the entrance, ostensibly checking his phone. The mayor looked up, locked eyes with Roman for a moment, then turned and walked briskly away. Interesting, Levi murmured. The mayor just happens to be here today. He's backing Lennon, Roman replied. Financially, politically. Then he backed the wrong horse. 2 days later, Roman sat in Levi's office, reviewing the custody filing. The document was comprehensive, detailing the false restraining order, the CPS complaint, the evidence of conspiracy from Clara's flash drive, character statements from neighbors and teachers. It's solid, Levi said, leaning back. We're requesting sole legal and physical custody with supervised visitation for Lennon, pending a psychological evaluation. Roman frowned slightly. Is that too aggressive? After what she's tried to do? Not at all. Levi shuffled the papers into order. The goal is to protect Sadie. Given Lennon's attempts to alienate you and her willingness to involve Sadie in her schemes, supervised visitation is appropriate. Roman's phone buzzed. A text from Clara. Need to meet. Urgent. Can you come to the park near your shop in 20 minutes? I need to go, Roman said, showing Levi the message. Clara has something. 20 minutes later, Roman pulled into the small public park 2 blocks from his shop. Clara sat on a bench near the duck pond, sunglasses on despite the partly cloudy sky. As Roman approached, he noticed her tense posture, the way she kept glancing around. Clara, he greeted, sitting beside her. Everything okay? She removed her sunglasses, revealing reddened eyes. No, not even close. She reached into her purse and withdrew another flash drive. Take this. Don't let anyone know you have it. Roman pocketed it immediately. What's on it? More recordings. Conversations between Lennon and the mayor. Plans for after they get custody. Her voice lowered. They want to move, Roman, to Charlotte. Mayor Kersey's taking a position with a law firm there once his term ends in June. They take Sadie with them. The news hit Roman like a physical blow. Charlotte was over 100 miles away, too far for regular visits. Too far to remain an active presence in Sadie's life. Can they do that? Not without court approval, but they're confident they'll get it. Clara's hands twisted in her lap. The mayor has connections with family court judges in Charlotte, too. They've been laying groundwork. Why are you still helping me? Lennon already cut ties with you. Clara's expression hardened. This isn't just about Lennon and me anymore. This is about a child. About right and wrong. She paused. And about what kind of person I want to be. There's something else, Clara continued. Lennon's planning to ambush you today. At pickup. Roman frowned. Pickup. School pickup. She's going to be there with witnesses. She'll try to provoke you, get you to react badly in front of other parents. Roman checked his watch. School dismissal was in 45 minutes. I need to go, he said, standing. Levi should be there. Good idea. And Roman. Clara caught his arm. Be careful. She's desperate now. After the restraining order failure, she needs a win. I'll be careful, he promised. Roman drove straight to Levi's office, explained the situation, and convinced the attorney to accompany him to school pickup. On the way, he called Marshall. Need a favor, Roman said. I need you to come to Sadie's school. Now, bring your phone, fully charged. On my way. Marshall replied without hesitation. What's happening? Lennon's planning a scene. I need witnesses' documentation. At the school, Roman and Levi arrived 15 minutes before dismissal. They parked in the visitor lot, choosing a spot with clear visibility of the pickup area. If she approaches, say as little as possible, Levi advised. Don't engage, don't react, don't give her anything she can use. Roman scanned the growing line of cars and cluster of waiting parents. There she is. Lennon stood near the school entrance, wearing a casual but expensive outfit, chatting with two other mothers. She looked perfectly at ease, as if showing up on Roman's designated pickup day was completely normal. Marshall arrived moments later, parking beside Roman's truck and joining them. That's her? By the doors. Yes. She's never here on my days. This is deliberate. As the dismissal bell rang, they walked toward the pickup area. Lennon spotted them immediately and moved to intercept. Roman, she called, voice carrying across the courtyard. We need to talk about Sadie. He stopped, maintaining distance, aware of parents turning to watch. This isn't the place, Lennon. It's my day for pickup. She approached anyway, expression a perfect mask of concerned motherhood. I'm worried about her. She came home upset last weekend. Said you yelled at her. The lie was so unexpected, so bold, that Roman nearly reacted. He caught himself, remembering Levi's advice. That's not true, he said evenly. And you know it. Lennon stepped closer, lowering her voice, but not enough that nearby parents couldn't hear. Don't call my daughter a liar, Roman, just because you can't control your temper. Ms. Maddox, Levi interrupted smoothly, stepping forward. I'm Levi Trent, Roman's attorney. This isn't an appropriate venue for discussing private family matters. Lennon's eyes widened slightly. She hadn't expected Roman to bring legal counsel to a school pickup. I'm concerned about my daughter, she insisted, recovering quickly. That's hardly a private matter. Actually, it is, Levi countered. And according to the custody schedule you signed, today is Mr. Maddox's day for pickup. Your presence here is unnecessary and potentially disruptive. Marshall had his phone out, openly recording the interaction. Several parents were watching now, some pretending not to, others making no effort to hide their interest. Are you filming me? Lennon demanded, noticing Marshall's phone. Public place, Marshall replied calmly. No expectation of privacy. This is harassment, Lennon said, voice rising slightly. You're all ganging up on me because I dare to question Roman's parenting. The school doors opened and children began streaming out. Roman spotted Sadie immediately, her dark hair in a single braid, backpack clutched to her chest. She froze when she saw both parents, uncertainty written across her face. Sadie, Lennon called, walking toward her. Honey, over here. Roman felt a flash of anger, but controlled it. He nodded to Levi, who stepped forward again. Ms. Maddox, if you attempt to remove Sadie from her father's custody during a scheduled time, it will constitute custodial interference. That's a crime in North Carolina. Lennon hesitated, glancing from Levi to Marshall's recording phone to the watching parents. The script wasn't playing out as she'd planned. Sadie took advantage of the moment to dart around her mother, running straight to Roman. He knelt down, meeting her at eye level. Hey, kiddo, he said softly. Ready to go home? She nodded, eyes wide with confusion and distress. Why is Mom here? It's not her day. I know. There's been a mix-up. He straightened, keeping one hand on Sadie's shoulder. We're going to go now. Say goodbye to your mom. Lennon stepped forward, face flushing. This isn't over, Roman. Actually, "It is," he replied quietly. "For today, we can discuss anything you need through our attorneys." He guided Sadie toward his truck, aware of Marshall and Levi flanking them protectively. Behind them, Lennon stood alone in the courtyard, watching with barely contained fury as her plan crumbled. In the truck, Sadie buckled her seatbelt silently, face troubled. "You okay, sweetheart?" Roman asked, starting the engine. She nodded, then shook her head. "Why was Mom saying those things? I never said you yelled at me." Roman's heart ached at the confusion in his daughter's voice. Sometimes grown-ups get confused about what's true and what isn't. Is that why Mr. Levi was there? And Uncle Marshall? Yes. They were helping make sure everyone remembered what's true. Sadie considered this, then nodded again. "Good. I don't like it when people forget what's true." The courtroom was more crowded than Roman had expected. Family court proceedings were typically private affairs, but word had spread about the high-profile case involving Mayor Kersey's girlfriend. Roman sat beside Levi at the plaintiff's table, posture straight, expression composed. Across the aisle, Lennon sat with her attorney, looking polished in a conservative blue dress. Lori sat directly behind her, silver blonde hair arranged perfectly, lips pressed into a thin line. Mayor Kersey was noticeably absent strategic decision, Levi had suggested, to avoid the appearance of using political influence. Judge Chen entered, a middle-aged woman with a reputation for thoroughness and fairness. Roman felt a flicker of hope. If anyone would see through Lennon's facade, it would be Judge Chen. Once everyone was seated, Judge Chen reviewed the file before her. "We're here on a petition for modification of custody filed by Roman Maddox regarding his minor child, Sadie Maddox. Mr. Maddox is requesting sole legal and physical custody with supervised visitation for the mother, Lennon Maddox." She looked up. "Let's begin with opening statements." Levi rose, buttoning his suit jacket. "Your Honor, this case is about a father fighting to protect his daughter from a pattern of manipulative and destructive behavior by her mother and maternal grandmother. Over the past several months, Ms. Maddox and her mother have engaged in a systematic campaign to alienate Mr. Maddox from his daughter and to manufacture evidence that would paint him as unstable, dangerous, and unfit. He outlined the CPS complaint, the false restraining order, the school confrontation, and the evidence from Clara's recordings. Most disturbing of all, Your Honor, is the documented plan to plant prescription medications in the child's backpack at Mr. Maddox's place of business, with the intent to discover them later and use this fabricated evidence against him." Judge Chen's expression remained neutral, but her gaze sharpened. "These are serious allegations, Counselor." "Yes, Your Honor, and we have the evidence to support each one." Levi gestured to the exhibits they'd submitted. "What we're describing is not just poor co-parenting or communication breakdown. This is a deliberate, calculated effort to remove a loving father from his child's life through fraudulent means." When Lennon's attorney rose for her opening, she attempted to characterize the situation as mutual antagonism between divorced parents. "Your Honor, while Mr. Maddox portrays himself as a victim, he has been equally difficult in this co-parenting relationship. Ms. Maddox sought a restraining order because she genuinely felt threatened. The fact that the judge dismissed it doesn't mean her fears weren't real." Judge Chun interrupted. "Counselor, according to the record, Judge Watkins not only dismissed the restraining order, but also warned your client about potentially making false reports. Is that correct?" The attorney hesitated. "Yes, Your Honor, but..." "Continue with your opening." As the hearing progressed, Levi methodically presented their evidence. He called Clara as a witness first. "Ms. Rusk, how long have you known Lennon Maddox?" Clara replied, 20 years. "Since high school. And would you consider yourself friends?" "We were, yes. Until recently." "What changed?" Clara glanced at Lennon, then back to Levi. "I discovered she was planning to fabricate evidence against Roman to gain custody of Sadie. Well, I confronted her about it. She ended our friendship." "And how did you discover this plan?" Clara detailed finding the voice memos on Lennon's phone, the conversation she'd overheard between Lennon and Lori, the text messages plotting to trigger Roman's temper in public. During cross-examination, Lennon's attorney attempted to portray Clara as a jealous friend with an axe to grind. Isn't it true that you've always been envious of Lennon's lifestyle? Her social connections? Claire's response was steady. No, I've been concerned about her choices, especially when they hurt her daughter. But you accessed her private phone without permission. That's hardly the action of a concerned friend. When I saw texts coming in about the plan to set up Roman, yes, I looked further. I'm not proud of invading her privacy, but I couldn't ignore what I found. Yasmin testified next, describing her observations of Roman and Sadie over the years as their neighbor. He's the most devoted father I've ever seen, she stated firmly. Patient, attentive, always putting Sadie first. My own children see how he is with her and ask why their dad wasn't like that. Marshall's testimony focused on the school confrontation and the plot to plant pills. Two of Sadie's teachers spoke to her thriving under Roman's care, and her science club mentor described Roman's consistent involvement in Sadie's education. When Roman took the stand, Levi led him through his relationship with Sadie, his parenting philosophy, and his response to Lennon's accusations. Mr. Maddox, why do you believe Ms. Maddox has taken these actions against you? Roman considered the question carefully. I believe Lennon sees Sadie as an extension of herself, not as her own person. When I separated from Lennon, she saw it as rejection, and she's using Sadie to punish me. But more than that, I think she and her mother have a specific vision for Sadie's future that doesn't include me or the values I've tried to instill: curiosity, honesty, hard work. During cross-examination, Lennon's attorney tried repeatedly to provoke an emotional reaction. Isn't it true that you've been bitter about Ms. Maddox's new relationship? That you resent her connection to Mayor Kersey? No, Roman replied calmly. I'm concerned about the mayor's influence on custody decisions, but who Lennon dates is her business. When Lennon finally took the stand, her testimony was a masterclass in selective truth and emotional manipulation. I've always been Sadie's primary caregiver, she claimed, voice catching slightly. Roman was always working, always at the shop. He's a good provider, but I'm the one who knows her routines, her needs. And these allegations about planning to plant evidence? The recordings Ms. Russ provided. Lennon's expression hardened briefly before softening into hurt. Taken out of context, Clara and I would sometimes vent about Roman, hypotheticals about what he might be hiding. We never actually planned to do anything. Judge Chin interrupted. Ms. Maddox, I've reviewed these recordings. They don't sound hypothetical to me. There are specific dates, locations, and methods discussed. We were just talking, Lennon insisted. People say things they don't mean when they're frustrated. As Levi began his cross-examination, he approached the witness stand with the transcripts of the recordings. Ms. Maddox, in this conversation from April 12th, you said, and I quote, "We need to show the judge something concrete, something that proves he's unstable." Your mother replied, "The pill plan is our best option. We just need the right timing." Does that sound hypothetical to you? Color rose in Lennon's cheeks. You're twisting things. I'm reading directly from the transcript, Ms. Maddox. Levi turned a page. On April 15th, you said to your mother, "Once we get full custody, Glenn's connections in Charlotte will make the relocation approval a formality." Were you planning to move Sadie away from her father? We discussed possibilities, that's all. Yet you never mentioned these possibilities to Mr. Maddox, the father of your child. It wasn't concrete yet. Levi continued methodically, highlighting contradictions, exposing the careful planning behind what Lennon characterized as innocent venting. By the time he finished, Lennon's composed facade had cracked, revealing flashes of the anger beneath. Lori's testimony followed, equally manipulative but less skilled. Where Lennon projected wounded innocence, Lori exuded contempt for Roman, for the proceedings, for anyone questioning her daughter's narrative. Of course, we discussed ways to protect Sadie, she declared. Roman's business attracts unsavory characters. Bikers, ex-convicts. No child should be exposed to that environment. Did you ever observe any inappropriate behavior at Mr. Maddox's shop when Sadie was present? Levi asked. I didn't need to see it to know it exists. So that's a no. Lori's eyes narrowed. You're twisting my words. I'm asking for facts, Mrs. Havens. Do you have any? In her closing argument, Lennon's attorney emphasized Lennon's role as Sadie's mother, the importance of maternal care, and the misunderstandings that had led to the current situation. Levi's closing was succinct and powerful. Your Honor, this case presents a stark choice between truth and manipulation. Mr. Maddox has provided concrete evidence of Ms. Maddox's attempts to alienate him from his daughter through fraudulent means. The recordings are clear, the pattern is established, and the intent is undeniable. He gestured to Roman. Here sits a father who has done everything right, documented interactions, secured his home, maintained Sadie's routines, supported her interests. He hasn't disparaged Sadie's mother to her. He hasn't tried to turn his daughter against her mother. He has simply fought to remain in her life despite extraordinary efforts to remove him. Judge Chun called a recess to review the evidence before rendering her decision. When court resumed an hour later, her expression was grave as she delivered her ruling. In the matter of custody regarding the minor child, Sadie Maddox, this court has reviewed all evidence and testimony presented. This has been a troubling case on many levels. She turned to Lennon. Ms. Maddox, the evidence of your attempts to interfere with Mr. Maddox's relationship with your daughter is substantial and concerning. The recordings provided by Ms. Rusk, while obtained through questionable means, are admissible and paint a disturbing picture of deliberate efforts to fabricate evidence against Mr. Maddox. Lennon started to protest, but her attorney placed a restraining hand on her arm. Furthermore, the judge continued, your filing of a false restraining order, as determined by Judge Watkins, suggests a willingness to misuse the legal system to achieve your goals. This court cannot condone such behavior. She turned to Roman. Mr. Maddox, your efforts to document interactions and protect yourself while maintaining Sadie's routine and stability are commendable. Multiple witnesses have attested to your consistent and loving care of your daughter. Judge Chun closed the file before her. Based on all evidence presented, this court grants Mr. Maddox's petition for sole legal and physical custody of Sadie Maddox, effective immediately. A small gasp escaped Lennon. Behind her, Lori's face hardened into a mask of fury. Ms. Maddox will have visitation rights, the judge continued, but initially, these visits will be supervised until Ms. Maddox completes a parenting class and psychological evaluation. The court will reassess in 90 days. With a final bang of her gavel, it was over. Roman felt a complex wave of emotions, relief, vindication, and a deep sadness that it had come to this. As the courtroom began to empty, Sadie burst through the doors, having been waiting outside with a court-appointed advocate. She ran straight to Roman, wrapping herself around his leg in a fierce hug. "Dad," she exclaimed, face tilted up to his. "Miss Patricia said you won. Does that mean I get to stay with you?" Roman knelt down, meeting her at eye level. "Yes, sweetheart. You'll be living with me full-time for a while, but you'll still see Mom regularly." Across the courtroom, Lennon watched them, her expression unreadable. Lori stood beside her, leaning close to mutter something in her ear. "He's ruined her." Lori's voice carried just far enough for Roman to hear. Roman straightened, still holding Sadie's hand, and met Lori's gaze steadily. "No," he said, voice clear and calm. "I save her from you." 3 weeks after the custody hearing, Roman sat at his desk in the shop, reviewing invoices. Business had picked up considerably, whether from the Ryan Reynolds Commission finally getting publicity or from the local attention following the custody battle. He wasn't sure. Marshall entered, coffee in hand. "Morning, boss. You see the paper?" He dropped the Asheville Citizen-Times on the desk. The headline jumped out immediately. Ethics investigation launched. Mayor Kersey under scrutiny. Roman scanned the article, which detailed allegations of misused campaign funds, conflicts of interest, and inappropriate relationships with businesses seeking city contracts. No mention of Lennon or the custody case. But Roman recognized several of the financial irregularities from the file Marshall's cousin had compiled. "Interesting timing," Roman commented, pushing the paper back across the desk. Marshall shrugged. "Anonymous source, apparently. Someone with access to campaign finance records." "Not our concern," Roman replied, though they both knew better. That evening, as Roman and Sadie prepared dinner in their kitchen, the local news played on the small TV on the counter. Mayor Kersey's face filled the screen as he read a statement denying the allegations, but announcing a temporary step back from duties while the investigation proceeded. "That's Mom's friend, right?" Sadie asked, sprinkling cheese on the salad. "Yes," Roman replied carefully. "They've been spending time together." Sadie considered this as she arranged tomato slices with scientific precision. "He seems sad on TV. Sometimes people make choices that have consequences they don't expect. Like when I didn't study for my spelling test and got AC." Roman smiled. "Something like that, but bigger. Is that why Mom's been so quiet when I visit? Because of his consequences?" Roman set down the spatula and turned to face his daughter fully. "Your mom's going through some changes right now, but she still loves you very much. The supervised visits won't last forever." Sadie nodded, solemn beyond her years. "I know." Miss Patricia explained everything. She looked up at him. "Dad, are you still angry at Mom?" The question caught him off guard. He considered it honestly before answering. "I'm disappointed in some choices she made," he said finally. "But I'm focusing on moving forward. I'm making sure you're happy and safe." "But you don't forgive her," Sadie observed. It wasn't a question. Roman met his daughter's perceptive gaze. "Some things are hard to forgive, Sadie. But that's my issue, not yours. You love your mom, and that's exactly how it should be." Later that week, the fallout continued. Mayor Kersey announced his resignation, effective immediately. The news barely mentioned Lennon, but Roman heard through various channels that she'd become toxic in the social circles she'd worked so hard to cultivate. Without Mayor Kersey's financial support, she couldn't maintain the lifestyle she'd created. She listed the expensive Craftsman house on the market and returned to her old job as a paralegal. 3 weeks later, on a perfect Saturday morning in late spring, Roman loaded the last of the camping gear into his truck. Beside him, Sadie checked items off a list with meticulous attention to detail. Tent, sleeping bags, cooler, first aid kit, flashlights, matches, and waterproof container. She looked up at him. "Did you get the marshmallows?" "Extra bag," Roman confirmed, pointing to the grocery sack tucked beside the cooler. "And chocolate and graham crackers." Sadie grinned. "Perfect." The sound of a motorcycle approaching made them both turn. Marshall pulled up on his custom Triumph, the engine purring before falling silent. "Ready for the wilderness?" Marshall asked, removing his helmet. "Almost," Sadie replied seriously. "We're doing final inventory." As Roman started the engine, he noticed a familiar car turning onto their street Lennon sedan, slowing as it approached the house. He tensed slightly, wondering if there would be one final confrontation before their weekend escape. But Lennon merely slowed, rolled down her window, and waved at Sadie in the back seat. She looked different, hair shorter, clothing simpler, expression subdued. Sadie waved back enthusiastically. "Mom's coming to my science fair on Tuesday," Sadie said as Lennon's car continued down the street. "Miss Patricia said she could." "That's good," Roman replied, pulling away from the curb. "She should be there for important moments." They drove through Asheville, the city gradually giving way to smaller towns, then to the winding roads that led into Pisgah National Forest. Marshall followed on his motorcycle, the chrome catching sunlight as they curve along mountain roads. A scenic overlook, they stopped to rest. The valley spread below them in a tapestry of greens and blues. Sadie sat between Roman and Marshall on a fallen log, drinking from her water bottle and surveying the landscape with satisfaction. "Dad," she said after a thoughtful silence. You didn't lose." Roman looked down at her, surprised by the comment. "Lose what?" "The fight. With Mom and Grandma Lori." Her expression was serious, her eyes wise beyond her years. "They wanted you to lose me, but you didn't." Roman put his arm around her small shoulders, throat tight with sudden emotion. "No," he said quietly. "I just made sure they didn't." Sadie nodded, satisfied with his answer, and returned to watching a hawk circle lazily above the valley. Later that afternoon, as they broke camp and loaded the truck for the journey home, Roman felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced in months. The battle was over. Not just the custody fight, but the larger war, the one for truth, for justice, for the right to determine his own and his daughter's future. He didn't forgive Lennon. Some betrayals cut too deep for forgiveness. He wouldn't seek revenge, wouldn't actively wish her harm, but neither would he pretend the past hadn't happened. She had shown him who she truly was, and he believed her. As they drove back toward Asheville, Sadie drowsy in the back seat and Marshall following on his motorcycle, Roman watched the mountains recede in his rearview mirror. There would be challenges ahead, co-parenting with Lennon, helping Sadie navigate the new normal, building his business while being a single father. But for the first time, those challenges didn't seem insurmountable, that he had weathered the storm not by bending, not by breaking, but by standing firm on the foundation of what he knew to be true. Roman Maddox, quiet, methodical, loyal to a fault, but not forgiving when betrayed. A man who saw betrayal as war and fought accordingly. But more importantly, a father who would not lose, and he never looked back.